time again for another episode of Jason's Game Room, the podcast that is everything about gaming, from video games to board games to card games to dice games. If it's gaming, it's on this show. And today I'm going to talk to you about video game controversies that have happened over the years. Because there have been so many video game controversies since the genre started, I am not going to get into each and every one of them. Neither of us has the time. So I'm just going to be talking about some of the popular controversies and everything that surrounds them. So let's get right to it. And I'm going to start with a controversy that really should have never happened. But this was back when Sega was doing very well with Genesis and Game Gear. And they got a little ahead of themselves. And then this happened. And what I'm going to tell you about as this first controversy was from a video game that Sega put out for the CD system in 1992 called Night Trap. Now, if you're not familiar with this game, and you really don't want to be familiar with this game because it got pulled relatively quickly, but as I said, it should have never made it to the shelves. Night Trap was a more realistic type game for the CD series. The object of the game was pretty much violence, and you had to kidnap and rape women to advance the story and complete the game. Whoever thought this was a good idea and let this slip through, I didn't hear about it right off the bat when it came out. Mind you, I was 12 years old and I had a bit of a sheltered childhood up until I started getting into my mid-teens, but at the same time, even a lot of my friends that were heavier into gaming and actually had the Sega CD system didn't even hear about this until years later when we were in high school. And as teenagers, we were appalled. Now, you have to think in the 90s, most of us that were teenagers in the 90s, we didn't give a shit about anything. We didn't care if something was too violent or too risque. But at the same time, there has to be a line drawn. And when a game comes out where the purpose is abuse and to rape women, more specifically teenage women, how can that ever be considered acceptable? Who was the genius that let that slip through? Now, I could get into the full backstory about this game, but I have a lot of other controversies to cover. I just want to say that I was actually glad when Sega finally started going out of business and having all the problems it did, because in addition to some of the systems and some of the other problems, Night Trap was the biggest boner they could have let happen. It could have been stopped before it even started when the game was starting to be developed, and nobody bothered to do that. So, I'm sorry. That was just completely unacceptable from the get-go. Another game where controversy might have been avoided ahead of time, but it might have also ruined one of the best games and groundbreaking games of all time, was, in the same year, of 1992, Wolfenstein 3D. Now, this has been one of my all-time favorite video games. I've played it repeatedly since it came out. I had it on an old 286 computer where I was able to unlock it through the DOS and play. I've played renderings and PC versions of it over the years. I even have a copy of Wolfenstein 3D on my PS3 that I downloaded from the PlayStation Store, and once in a while I just go in there to screw around and find treasure and shoot people. And you might think, oh, well, you're a Polish-American soldier escaping from the evil Germans in World War II, so what's so controversial? You're killing Germans, man. It's not so much the violence in the game that became the controversy. The violence is gory. There is blood. You are killing people who are turning into bloody piles. You're also killing innocent dogs, which kind of disturbed me at the time because I'm an animal lover, and to kill dogs is just wrong. But the main issue with the game and why it garnered so much controversy is all the symbolism in the game for Germany in World War II, more specifically the NSDAP, more commonly known as the Nazi Party, who, as you know, came to power and started World War II and tried to take over the world. The fact that this game was released globally and in Germany, where there is no symbolism of Nazis allowed, it's actually against the law. You could be thrown into prison for doing anything close to what Nazis used to do, like the salute, displaying swastikas, everything. Well, Wolfenstein 3D had portraits of Hitler, portraits of swastikas. You had that feel that you were in a German dungeon doing nefarious things and watching it go down. Personally, I'm not, even though, and surprisingly, even though I am a German Canadian, as my background is mostly German, I'm not bothered personally by the symbolism, because sometimes a video game is just a game, but at the same time, when you're releasing a game in Germany where all of that's happened over the years and they've tried to right what they've done and put that episode as far away from their history as they can and make up for it, and then this game comes out, I personally, if I was ID Software, I might have created a second version of the game that didn't have that symbolism and released that one in Europe, more specifically Germany. That whole controversy could have also been avoided, but unfortunately it wasn't. And, it's been censored over the years in Germany, whereas the rest of the world, we get to play the full, unadulterated game. But it's another one of those games where controversy might not have happened, but it did. Mortal Kombat, that's a small controversy, because at the beginning there was the blood and the fatalities, and in the Super Nintendo version and Game Boy versions of the game, the blood was edited out and put aside, and this is partially why every other console's version sold almost 7-1 to Nintendo, and they ended up letting the blood and the fatalities back in. Yes, it was gory at the time when it came out, which was, again, also in 1992. Hey, that was a good year, wasn't it? I was there. But at the same time, it was a game-changing game in itself. It was a series that the world ate up and enjoyed, and myself included. It was an amazing series, the first bunch of games. I would list that as a smaller controversy, but because it was so prevalent and because it was Mortal Kombat, it's a bigger controversy. It's just, where to begin and where to end. And the arcade version had already been out for a little while, and kids were taking quarters and pumping them in there and seeing the blood and gore. It didn't bother us. Again, growing up in the 90s, you didn't give a damn about that sort of thing. It wasn't that big of a deal. But it became a big deal. It became a controversy, and things changed over time. The blood codes were added to the game so you could play with blood on or off to make people happy. So, one of the biggest gaming controversies out there, and this is probably going to be the last one that I get into today because this one is huge, is and will always be the Grand Theft Auto series of games. I have played almost I think I have played every Grand Theft Auto game in the series except for the Ballad of Gay Tony. I never bothered with that one. Or maybe I did try a demo, but anyways, I'm getting off topic. From the outset, Grand Theft Auto promoted everything illegal, everything that goes against the grain. In the first game itself, you were stealing cars, you were beating people up, you could run past people, fart and burp in their faces, believe it or not. You'd get weapons, you could smash into things, you could shoot people, you could kill innocent people in the streets, you can the list goes on and on and on what you could do. This expanded over the years as the Grand Theft Auto series continued, and when Grand Theft Auto went 3D and into the polygon world, it became even more of a controversy because of everything else you could start doing in the game on top of that. We're not just talking about stealing cars now and simple mini crimes, but robberies, drug deals, murders, massacres, like torture in some of the games, as well as picking up prostitutes, having sex with them in your car. Personally, I never did that in the games because it wasn't an interest for me, but maybe once. Okay, I admit I did it once in San Andreas. But everything that any parent group or government hated in a game was in the Grand Theft Auto series. Now, for us gamers, it was great because as the games progressed, they got bigger. They became more sandbox style. You could do more. You could do less if you wanted to. But the range of activities was just insane. And culminating with the last game in the series that I've played, which was Grand Theft Auto 5, more specifically online, the amount of things you can do in breaking the law and getting yourself in trouble in that game is just insane. Like, every sexual theme you could think of, there's racism, nudity, you go to the... if you go to where the college is in the game, you go in that little weird round-shaped building. There's nude chicks in there at night shaking their tits around. It's that kind of a game. It's been rated mature, but it hasn't stopped younger audiences from playing the game. You know, and just with the character of Trevor attaching booster cables to some guy's nipples and pulling his teeth out with pliers. It is a nasty, nasty game, but at the same time, that's what makes it great. I think at one time, this was in Grand Theft Auto 3 when they first went to the 3D mode, a group of Chinese complained because at one point in the game, you're beating the shit out of Chinese people. Now, mind you, they're mainly mobsters, but at the same time, yeah. Like, racism's been huge in this game, but at the same time, the game was made to be like that. It is made to... You're breaking the law. That's the whole point of Grand Theft Auto. Break the law, have fun doing it. But it continues to be the biggest controversy in video games, and I don't think anything will ever top it just because of the number of games in the series and what's happened over the years. As far as honorable mention goes, and I'm not doing the highs, the lows, or the downright dirty today, but I'm going to give an honorable mention to a controversy, and that would be Duke Nukem 3D from 1996. Also a very great game, one of the first 3D type games that gave us a shit ton of violence, nudity everywhere. Like, we're talking boobs, boobs, and more boobs. So many references to sex toys, penises, anything you could think of was in that game. And that was one of the first times that alarm bells went off for parent groups and government officials going, whoa, we can't handle this. It was a great game, and I played it on PC. I enjoyed it. In fact, seeing all those boobs and all that sexual content made me laugh my brains out most of the time. Not so much of the absurdity, because it was just a lot of fun to experience. Unfortunately, the franchise got ruined with Duke Nukem Forever. I'm not talking about that today. That's another bone to pick for another day. Anyways, that's all I got for controversies. Like I said, I don't have time to get into every damn game controversy that ever happened. I thank everybody for tuning in to today's show. If there's something you want to see on another episode coming up in the future, don't hesitate to leave a comment and tell me. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends, run down the street screaming, Jason's Game Room is awesome! Oh my God! You might get some weird looks doing that, but, you know, it's worth a try. Anyways, have a great day, everybody. Peace out.